ESPN recently put out an article where they predicted what the Giants are going to do in NFL free agency in the future of Xavier McKinney and Saquon Barkley. We're going to react to those predictions on today's show as you're watching Giants Now by Chat Sports, and I am your host, Marshall Green. The NFL offseason is officially here, and the NFL's franchise tag window opened up earlier this week, and the Giants, they will have until March 5th to decide if they want to put the franchise tag, the non-exclusive tag, or the transition tag on a guy like Saquon Barkley or Xavier McKinney. And also right around the corner is NFL free agency. That'll open up on March 11th, and we're going to be breaking it down on this channel. That's why you subscribe. But next, ESPN, they predict the Giants will sign a pass rusher in free agency. I can't wait to break that one down. But make sure you are subscribed to the channel because we're going to be live for the duration of NFL free agency, breaking down everything that's happening across the NFL as well as everything happening with Big Blue. So if you're looking for free, informative, entertaining updates on your New York Giants, subscribe to the channel right now. We'll talk about the pass rusher the Giants are projected to sign, but let's start with some in-house players, Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney. Let's start with Saquon Barkley. And unfortunately, if you are a Saquon Barkley fan, it may just be the end of Barkley and the Giants, according to ESPN. They are predicting that Barkley will sign with the Houston Texans in NFL free agency. This has been a hot rumor that's been floating around the National Football League. I think he actually might be leaving. Going to be a sad, sad day. This is what ESPN said exactly. With Devin Singletary hitting the free agent market, the Texans could swing big here to add Barkley as a dual-threat player in Bobby Slowick's offense. Think of Barkley as an underneath outlet for C.J. Stroud, in addition to the rushing volume he would take on. Barkley has averaged 98.9 scrimmage yards over his career with the Giants, and he would bring even more juice to one of the league's most dynamic offenses. And the reason that Saquon Barkley and the Houston Texans have been talked about so frequently is because the Texans have the cap space to get it done. They sit at about roughly $54 million in cap space. That number could always change if a couple of moves are made. The contract projection, though, for Barkley is at 3 years, $36.7 million with $20 million guaranteed. That comes from Pro Football Focus, and I'm not so sure that Joe Schoen is willing to ante up that type of bag to keep Barkley on this roster. And the Texans, they do seem like the number one landing spot. We've heard about the Dallas Cowboys. We've heard about the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm praying that if he does leave, Barkley leaving Big Blue, it's not to a fellow NFC East team. But at the end of the day, Joe Schoen, he holds the keys to this conversation. He can bring Saquon Barkley back if they really want to. If they really think that Barkley is worth the money and he is that important to this team, they can franchise tag him. They can put the transition tag on him. They could do a multitude of things. If they want Barkley to be a Giant, they can get it done. I'm not so sure that they do at this point. I know this for a fact, though. If Daniel Jones is your quarterback next year, like Joe Schoen has mentioned time and time again this offseason, that if healthy, Daniel Jones is QB1. If that is true, the Giants need to do everything it takes to keep number 26, the former number 2 overall pick, Saquon Barkley, on this football team. Because if you're going to start Daniel Jones and you're going to let Saquon leave in free agency, you're pretty much just punting on the season. That tells me and that tells all of the Big Blue faithful out there that you are not actually trying to win games. I'm not sure how you're going to sell that to this organization. If Daniel Jones is your quarterback next year, Saquon Barkley needs to be on this football team. I want you to predict it, though, down in the comment section because it's getting realer and realer every single day as we get closer to free agency being kicked off. Will Saquon Barkley be a New York Giant next season? Predict it for me. Type Y for yes, type N for no. Maybe it's just the hope in me. Maybe it's just because I want it to happen. I still do think that Saquon Barkley will be playing football for Big Blue next season. I hope that's the case. I believe that to be true for one reason and one reason only. Saquon Barkley wants to be a Giant. He knows what it means to be once a Giant, always a Giant, and only a Giant. And he has said that time and time again. And for that reason, I think he's going to be back with this football team next year. Xavier McKinney, on the other hand, I'm not 100% sure. And ESPN, they are predicting that McKinney, one of the top 5 graded out safeties by Pro Football Focus, is going to be leaving the Giants and heading to Green Bay to be a Packer. This was their write-up on that. Quote, "This might be a stretch given the Packers' history in free agency, but McKinney can play both safety spots with the ability to cover downfield and create range in the post. He had 3 interceptions last season with the Giants, and I see him as a good fit for a Packers defense that will change its coverage and pressure tendencies under defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley." The only problem that I kind of see with McKinney signing with the Packers is they only have about $5 million in cap space right now. There are rumors that they're going to be releasing very good left tackle David Bakhtiari and then get them up to $25 million in cap space. But even then, he would be eating up pretty much all of that because PFF predicts that McKinney will sign a 4-year, $54 million deal with $30 million guaranteed. We know how special of a player McKinney is. And they're going to try to do some crazy things to keep him. And there's a rumor out there that the Giants can use something that not a lot of teams in the NFL have used in the past before. Not the franchise tag, but the transition tag. The differences between that when it comes to the safety market is about $3 million. The transition tag comes in at $13.9 million, whereas the franchise tag comes in at $16.2. What is the transition tag? Like the franchise tag, it takes the average of the annual value that the top players at your position make. For the franchise tag, it's the top 5 players. For the transition tag, it's top 10. But on top of that, the transition tag allows the player to enter free agency and negotiate with other teams. And if they come to an agreement with another team, the Giants will then have the opportunity to match that contract. Very similar to restricted free agency in the NBA. So it costs less, but it also gives the player in this situation, Xavier McKinney, the opportunity to negotiate a deal with other teams, and then it gives the Giants the opportunity to match that contract if he does want to sign somewhere else. The main reason I think the Giants need to keep Xavier McKinney outside of being a good football player is that he is still just 24 years old. You always think that these players, when they hit free agency, are usually on their last legs or past their prime. I think it's safe to say that the X-Man has not even touched his prime at this point. They need to bring him back. If you're not going to pay an emerging 24-year-old safety with his best days ahead of him, who are you going to pay? That would be my question to Joe Schoen. He just had his best season in the National Football League. Over 115 tackles, 11 PBUs, 3 interceptions, a couple of forced fumbles. He did everything for the Giants on defense last year. And I actually think he was not really used properly in a Don Wink Martindale defense because he can do so many things, but he was primarily that single high deep safety. Whereas with Shane Bowen, I think he could get creative and play McKinney in the box, a little on the line of scrimmage, as well as the deep half. I thought Pro Football Focus had a really good write-up on McKinney, kind of breaking down his strengths and weaknesses. Take a listen. McKinney's coverage grades as a free safety 81.4 and in the box 79.4 are top 10 marks amongst safeties in 2023. And there is a big enough sample size of box play despite his general deployment as a deep player. Over the past 3 seasons, McKinney's 7 yards allowed per target in coverage ranks top 25 among safeties. And his 17 combined interceptions and forced incompletions put him in the top 20. While he could make some plays at or near the line of scrimmage, he rarely whiffs on open field tackles. The 24-year-old has missed just 7.8% of his tackle attempts over his career, 11th best among 89 safeties with at least 100 tackles over the past 4 seasons, making him a reliable enough last line of defense. I think that shows you that since he's been in the league, he is looked at as one of the top guys at his position. And with the way the Giants are set up right now and going to attack the future, they are in a spot, like a lot of teams in this league, where they can't let good young talent walk out of the door for nothing. There's a reason you're picking number 6 in the NFL draft. There's a reason you had the number 1 turnover differential this year and you didn't make the playoffs, let alone you were one of the worst teams in the NFL. This team, it lacks talent. And McKinney, he's got a lot of it, and he's young. Do what it takes to bring him back. Xavier McKinney needs to be a Giant because he's a damn good football player. But I think it could come down to this. Is it Barkley or is it McKinney? The Giants don't have the most cap space in the league. They're tied for 17th right now. There are ways they can create more, but I'm not so sure that they would pay both of these guys. So I want you to sit in the seat of Joe Schoen. If you could only pick one player to be a Giant next season, who would it be Type 26 for Saquon Barkley or 29 for Xavier McKinney. Coming up next, we're going to show you the pass rusher that ESPN has projected to sign with the New York Giants in free agency. But first, I got to let you guys know about our proud sponsor, Game Time, the #1 ticketing app in the game. Go to the App Store, download the app, and use the promo code GiantsChat, and you're going to get $20 off. What is Game Time? Well, it's an app where you get the best seats for the lowest prices guaranteed. I honestly feel like this app was created for someone like me who is a procrastinator. I don't like to spend money until I absolutely have to. And with Game Time, the prices of the events drop as the games or the events get closer. And they always have these awesome flash deals. If you ever see that yellow sticker right there that says flash deal, take advantage of it because it's Game Time letting you know you're not going to get a better deal than this. Another feature that I love about Game Time is when you're deciding on if you want to buy a seat or a ticket to a concert or a game or an event, you get to see the view of the stage from your seat. So you get a real inside the stadium or event center at the look of the stage or whatever you're going to be watching. I love it. Game Time is the best app to buy tickets. It's the only one I use now. And if you use the promo code GiantsChat, you get $20 off. You redeem code right here, put in GiantsChat, and save yourself $20 off. It's not just Giants games or Knicks games or Rangers games, comedy events, shows, concerts, and so much more. Download the Game Time app and use the promo code GiantsChat and save yourself $20. All righty, so we talked about Xavier McKinney and Saquon Barkley leaving the New York Giants. Luckily, ESPN had the Giants signing one of the best edge rushers, Bryce Huff. They bring over the New York Jet to become a New York Giant. Bryce Huff was the player that ESPN had predicted that will be a Giant, and a good reason for it. He's one of the best pass rushers, and the Giants, they were one of the worst pass rushing teams last year. With a new defensive coordinator in Shane Bowen, the Giants would benefit from adding Huff, a flamethrower off the edge, to play opposite of Kayvon Thibodeau. Last season with the Jets, Huff produced 10 sacks and logged a pass rush win rate of 21.8%, number 8 in the league. The Giants, meanwhile, were tied for 28th in sacks with 34. So the Giants all of last year had 34 sacks. Bryce Huff, he had 10 sacks by himself. But it's not going to be cheap if you're going to sign him. PFF thinks he's going to sign a deal about 3 years, $50 million, and $35 million guaranteed. Why? Because he's one of the best players in the league coming off the edge. You look at what he's done over the last 4 years, and you see that he's got a steady increase in volume and diet of playing, to be honest with you. He didn't play all that much when he first entered the league, but as his volume and snaps have gone up, as well as his production had. This past year, he had 45 QB hurries. He had 67 total pressures. To put that into perspective, Huff had 67 total pressures last year, right? Kayvon Thibodeau had 44. Dexter Lawrence had 65. So he had more than Sexy Dexy. And he had an 86 and an 88 pass rush grade the last 2 years. His pass rush grade this year was the 10th best in the National Football League. The juice is worth the squeeze here. He is a really good football player, and he addresses a need. The Giants, they lack pop off the edge. They don't really have a guy on this roster outside of Dexter Lawrence that consistently generates pressure on the passer. They need that. That is the DNA of New York Giants football. Pass rushers. They need to get back to that. You put pressure on the other quarterback, good things usually happen. If it's not Bryce Huff, here's a look at the other top 10 PFF top-rated edge rushers entering free agency. Josh Allen comes in at number 1. Brian Burns, number 2. Danielle Hunter, number 3. I do not believe he's going to be going back to the Minnesota Vikings, and he is another player that I'm going to be keeping my eye on all free agency long. Bryce Huff comes in at number 4. Chase Young, number 5. Jonathan Greenard, and number 6. Then guys like Jadeveon Clowney, Darius Smith, Josh Uche, and Leonard Floyd. If you're looking for a veteran that consistently gets it done, Leonard Floyd is a guy that I'm going to be keeping my eyes on as well. End of the day, the Giants have to improve the pass rusher spot. They have to invest in that, whether it's in free agency or whether it's the draft. I want to ask you this question, though. If Bryce Huff were to sign with the Giants, what would you grade the signing? What would you grade it? A, B, C, D, or F? Get out the red pen. Let me know what you think. Me, I'm going to give it a B+. I'd give it a B+. It addresses a need. I think it would be very fair money, and he's good, and he's still young. B+, good signing if it does happen. Make sure you are following me over on social media. If the Giants make any moves, you'll hear about it over on my Twitter. And I'm also posting over on my Instagram short-form video content as well, keeping you up to date on everything Big Blue over there. So hit me up, give me a follow, at @MarshallGreen_ is the handle on both sites.